Have you ever felt so certain that your faith was unstoppable, only to have your world shaken to its core? Imagine standing on the edge of everything you believe, wondering if what holds you together might also be tearing you apart. You remember Sarah, don't you? A woman whose quiet prayers built a sanctuary in her heart after losing her husband. But one day, she found herself staring at an empty church bench, her faith whispering doubts she'd never dared voice. What happened in that stillness changed everything. For centuries, people have asked, is faith our greatest fortress, or could it be our weakest link? There's a story from ancient times about a shepherd boy facing a giant, armed only with a sling and his trust in something greater than himself. Yet just a few miles away, a king built vast walls, relying on stone and steel, walls that crumbled when invaders discovered a hidden gate. Which is stronger, the unseen conviction in our hearts, or the visible ramparts we erect around our lives? When you felt overwhelmed by life's storms, perhaps after a betrayal, a diagnosis, or a loss, you may have clung to belief like a lifeline. But did that lifeline ever feel more like a noose, pulling you into questions you couldn't answer? Think of Thomas, an elderly man who survived political turmoil and exile. He prays every morning with a fervor that could move mountains. Yet when his daughter lost her child, he found himself silent before the altar, his prayers stuck in his throat. In that hush, he wondered if unwavering faith was a gift or a burden. We start with a promise that faith gives us strength beyond measure, a power to move mountains and conquer fear. And we end, well, we'll see. Years ago in a small village nestled between olive groves, there lived a pastor named Elena. She'd counseled countless souls, guiding them through grief, doubt, and joy. One summer evening, a stranger arrived, a scholar burned by skepticism. He challenged every teaching Elena held dear, firing questions like arrows. "How can I trust a God I cannot see?" he demanded. The congregation gasped. Elena's voice wavered. Was her faith strong enough to face doubt so raw? You've probably asked yourself that same question in the quiet of the night. If faith is unshakable, why does my heart tremble? The answer isn't simple. On one hand, faith can be the bedrock on which we stand when everything else falls away, like the shepherd boy's stone, striking true when no weapon could prevail. On the other hand, if that bedrock is misplaced or unexamined, it can crack us open, leaving us vulnerable when we most need strength. Remember the parable of the wise and foolish builders? One built his house on rock, the other on sand. When the rains came, the house on sand collapsed. But what if the rock itself shifts? What then? There's a moment in every believer's journey when certainty meets uncertainty. It might happen during a crisis of health, love, or finances. Suddenly, prayers that once felt like a warm embrace become echoes in an empty hall. You find yourself asking, is faith carrying me forward, or holding me back from confronting reality? Let me share a glimpse of something unexpected. A study once revealed that people with deep religious convictions often report higher well-being, but only when their beliefs are accompanied by community support. When faith is isolated, when it remains a private conviction without fellowship, it can spiral into rigid dogma, breeding fear instead of comfort. You might think faith is always empowering, but without connection, it can become a prison of doubts you cannot share. And here's the first question that might surprise you. Could the very act of doubting actually deepen your faith? Stay with me, because later you'll hear the story of a monk who embraced his doubts to find an even stronger belief, an answer no one saw coming. In everyday life, we see faith play out in simple acts. Maybe you've knelt beside a hospital bed, squeezing a loved one's hand, whispering prayers for healing. You've lit a candle in a quiet chapel, letting the flame represent hope flickering against despair. You've sung hymns at dawn, your voice mingling with others, creating a chorus that transcends loneliness. Yet, what if those acts become mere rituals? Comforting, yes, but hollow if your heart isn't truly engaged. Faith can be a fortress, yes, but what if you've built walls so high that no light can enter? Imagine Maria, a faithful teacher who led Sunday school for decades. She wore her faith like a badge of honor, never missing a service. But when her teenage son started questioning scripture, she felt betrayed. Instead of listening, she doubled down, erecting barriers between them. Her fortress of faith became a cage, isolating her from the one she loved most. It poses the next cliffhanger: can faith that isolates become a weakness? Keep this question close, because by the end, you'll hear how Maria tore down those walls, learning that faith isn't about unyielding certainty, but about vulnerability and love. Now, let's pause for a moment. Picture your own life. What does faith look like in your routine? Is it a shield you lift when danger looms, or a chain that binds you to fear of the unknown? Do you draw comfort from traditions, or do you feel trapped by expectations? Pause with that thought. In a minute, I'll reveal how one man's crisis led to a revelation that reshaped his entire understanding of belief. Behind every ritual, every prayer, every verse memorized, there's a heartbeat waiting to be heard. If that heartbeat syncs with the divine, faith lifts you. But if it races with anxiety, faith can crush you. There was a time when the early church faced persecution. Believers met in catacombs, singing in whispers, hiding their conviction behind hidden doors. Their faith was a fortress against tyranny. Yet, some became so afraid of discovery that they fled their own gatherings, abandoning brothers and sisters in need. Their fortress became a labyrinth of fear. Contrast that with Mother Teresa, whose faith poured out in service to the poorest of the poor. She called her faith a gift, not a weapon. Her hands shook with compassion, not with fear. Her stories remind us that faith can be a bridge, not a barrier. Which brings us to a critical juncture: is faith stronger when it protects, or when it opens us to risk? In one of the most famous trials of faith, Job lost everything: his family, his wealth, his health. Yet, he refused to curse God. Many saw his endurance as proof of unwavering faith. But in his dialogues, you see grief, anger, doubt, questions sharper than any sword. Only when he confronted his pain did he emerge with a deeper understanding, not of God's power, but of his presence amid suffering. There's our final cliffhanger before we arrive at the climax. Can faith born in fire be stronger than faith born in comfort? Picture the moment now. The world seems to crumble. You've clung to beliefs that feel unbreakable, but the foundation quakes. What do? Do you flee? Do you hide? Or do you lean in, trusting that the ground beneath you, though shifting, is leading you somewhere new? Here is the revelation: faith is both fortress and fragility. It is fortress when it stands on tested truths and open hearts. It is weakness when it stands on untested assumptions and closed doors. Real faith, the kind that endures great storms, is forged in the heat of doubt. It is not the absence of questions, but the courage to ask them. When that stranger scholar confronted Pastor Elena, she didn't respond with perfect answers. She shared her broken moments, the fears she begged God to take away, and the times she felt utterly abandoned. In that honesty, the scholar found a faith deeper than certainty, one that welcomed questions as part of the journey. Maria, the teacher whose fortress isolated her, finally sat with her son, tears and an apology flowing together. She admitted she didn't have all the answers. In that vulnerability, they rebuilt trust. Her faith became a doorway instead of a wall. And Thomas, the man who lost words at his daughter's tragedy? He found them again when he realized prayer wasn't a performance but a conversation. He let silence speak, and in that silence, he heard hope. So ask yourself, is your faith a fortress you defend, or a path you walk together with your Creator? If you find your walls rising too high, tear down one brick of certainty. Ask the question you've been afraid to voice. Open that loop, and watch your faith grow stronger in the space you once feared. Your challenge now: share one question you've never asked out loud. Write it down. Pray it, journal it, or bring it to someone you trust. Don't close the door on doubt, open it, and see where faith leads you next. If this message stirred something in you, let me know in the comments. What doubt will you face today? And if you'd like more stories of faith tested and transformed, subscribe and share this journey. Faith isn't a fortress you inhabit alone. It's the bridge we build together, brick by brave brick. Let's walk it, question by courageous question, toward a belief that stands unshaken, not because it fears nothing, but because it knows it's never alone.